Welcome, everybody. I'm Charles Grant from the Centre for European Reform. We're having a seminar starting now with our friend Thomas Byrne, the Minister for European Affairs for the Irish government. And I'd just like to say a couple of ground rules before we kick off. Firstly, the Minister's opening remarks will be on the record. They'll last about 10 minutes, roughly. Then we'll go into a discussion which will be off the record. And I think the opening remarks will be recorded and put up on our website, but not the off the record discussion bit. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the Minister, who's been Minister for European Affairs for about a year, from the Fianna Fáil party, that part of this coalition that's now governing Ireland. So over to you, Minister.
Thanks very much, Charles. I was delighted to and grateful for your invitation to this discussion today. The Centre for European Reform has had a long and distinguished track record of facilitating these types of important conversations and challenging conversations. And it's difficult to think of an issue more deserving of consideration than the EU-UK relationship and how that will develop in the time ahead. That's what I intend to speak on. And we're not quite, but almost 5 months, half-year point in June into the new arrangements. It's timely to consider the questions that will underpin the future of EU-UK relations. Ireland, of course, has a unique perspective on the issue, not least because of the complex ways in which the island of Ireland has been affected by Brexit, and by the specific form of Brexit chosen by the UK government. We have a very stable perspective on this. Early on, we identified what the main challenges for Ireland were with the UK withdrawal and what were our core interests in the arrangements that would result. They'll all be familiar to this audience: avoiding a hard border on the island of Ireland, protecting the gains of the Good Friday Agreement, protecting the integrity of the European single market and our place within it. It's also important to us, really important to us, to preserve the close and valued people-to-people economic, social and cultural ties that define the East-West relationship between UK and Ireland. This analysis is pretty much unanimously shared across the political spectrum in Dublin, and it's why there has been such consistency in the Irish government's Brexit strategy all the way through the process. Those core values and interests are the prism through which we approach discussions around the withdrawal agreement and the negotiation of the trade and cooperation agreement, and are the prism through which we now look at implementing them. The shape of these agreements have been determined by the choices made, in particular by the UK's decision to leave the customs union and single market, to prioritise its right to choose its own path on regulatory standards and to end freedom of movement. We respect those choices, but we must also be realistic about how they restrict what's possible in the new arrangements. So our collective task has been to maximise as much as possible the space for mutually beneficial cooperation and to minimise as much as possible the negative impact on our citizens and businesses of the UK no longer being part of the European institutions that the UK indeed helped to build. So the EU has shown enormous creativity and flexibility in how it approached the negotiations over the withdrawal of the UK and the future relationship. The withdrawal agreement and the TCA provide for an unprecedented level of economic cooperation between the EU and a country outside the European Economic Area. They also provide for both parties, of course, to continue to work together in areas like judicial and police cooperation, transport and energy connectivity, and on continuing the very important peace funding, now known as Peace Plus, in support of reconciliation on the island of Ireland, particularly Northern Ireland and in border communities. Through the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland, they also include bespoke arrangements addressing the unique ways in which the island is affected by Brexit. The scale and scope of the two agreements reflect the depth of the ties created during the UK's EU membership, as well as the irresistible logic of geographic proximity. They provide the connective tissue that can support partnership and prosperity into the future. Now, the agreements, of course, don't reproduce all the cooperation that we had before Brexit. Controls and checks on goods that had disappeared with the creation of the single market are back now as a feature and a permanent feature of trade. That was the unavoidable consequence of the negotiating choices of the UK. Further waves of Brexit related change will come in October of this year and into 2022, when the UK introduces its own additional import controls on many products of plant and animal origin. We're working, of course, with the UK government to clarify the precise nature of these changes to our exporters, so goods can flow as smoothly as possible through the UK. Nonetheless, there will be further challenges ahead. As a government, we'll do everything we can to support our traders to meet the challenges. Many sectors, especially fisheries and those involved in the import and export of goods and services with Great Britain, have found themselves at the sharp end of these changes. This reality has been at the heart of my government's comprehensive preparations in the lead up to the 1st of January, and it continues to guide our intensive engagement with those most affected by Brexit. If we take a step back from the detail, it's important to underline a foundational fact about the new framework for EU-UK relations. Both the TCA and the withdrawal agreement, including the protocol, are joint creations of EU-UK, joint responsibilities of both sides, and they must now be fully implemented as joint endeavours. These agreements set the parameters for what is possible and permissible, but we still have important choices to make in how we approach the future of this relationship. As we make these choices, one question should be foremost in our minds: what is best for citizens and for business? There is, of course, the choice as to how we approach areas of cooperation not addressed by the TCA. Foreign policy, security and defence cooperation are one such area, although they were part of the joint political declaration made in 2019. Ireland would like to see structured EU-UK cooperation where interests and values align. There is the very fundamental choice of how we manage the EU-UK relationship at a political level. As in any relationship, we can only get what we're willing to put in. Successful partnerships thrive on trust, stability, and respect. Truly investing in the EU-UK partnership is undoubtedly in the interest of our citizens and businesses. The political signals we give about how we value the EU-UK relationship have a direct impact on their welfare now and into the future. So there is the choice of how we approach the commitments already made in the agreements. This is a matter of trust, which I've already said is an essential prerequisite for a thriving partnership. Both agreements must be fully implemented through joint action in their appropriate channels. It's only by doing this that their full potential can be realised to mutual benefit. Regarding implementation of the protocol in Ireland and Northern Ireland, I understand and appreciate the genuine concerns that have been voiced. I and other members of the Irish government have been proactively engaging with Northern Ireland stakeholders on these issues, and so too has the EU and indeed the UK. We can't lose sight of why the UK government and the EU agreed the protocol in the first place. Northern Ireland's unique circumstances required unique arrangements, the shape of which were determined by the type of Brexit sought by the British government. The exhaustive discussions involved commitments and compromises on both sides. There is no alternative to the protocol. We have to make it work, and that is the joint responsibility of the EU and the UK to do so. But the baseline for these discussions must be full respect for the legally binding commitments already made. I welcome that there is intensive, ongoing engagement on outstanding issues around the protocol. Even now, there are choices available that would address many of the difficult challenges. This includes a new SPS and veterinary agreement between the EU and the UK, which could be tailored appropriately. This could considerably reduce the checks needed on relevant goods moving in Ireland and would have Ireland's full support. The EU has signalled clearly that it is open to new arrangements, but this would need to be the UK's choice also. Jointly addressing outstanding issues through established channels would also allow us to focus on the opportunities presented by the protocol for Northern Ireland, including full access to both the UK internal market and the EU single market of 450 million people. There is also the question of how we make the most out of the TCA's joint bodies, the specialised committees responsible for overseeing the practical details of cooperation. There is an opportunity here to make these forums where we explore every letter and punctuation mark of the agreement to see how its full potential can be realised, where we address difficulties in a spirit of partnership, where we work together to see what new avenues of cooperation can be identified. That's the ambition with which Ireland, working together with our EU partners, approaches this. In a way, many of these decisions can be boiled down to a single choice. Do we want a future of shared prosperity, partnership, and cooperation? For Ireland, the answer is an unequivocal yes. It is my fundamental belief that closer ties will only strengthen us. They don't bind us. What can we possibly have to fear from working together in partnership with one of our neighbours? Of course, how to approach the future relationship is not a question for Ireland or even the EU acting alone. The decisions made in the months and years ahead by the UK government will determine much of what is possible. The past few years have been defined by difficulties and disagreement, but the future need not be if the political will is there. History, geography, and plain common sense tell us that it is in our interest to make a success of the EU-UK relationship. Actually doing so rests probably on choices not yet made. Thank you, Charles, for the invitation again today, and I look forward to addressing the questions as best I can.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for the concision. Let me start off with one of my